because you have to learn now. It didn't used to be necessary, but today you have to learn something like, are you really hungry, or are you just stuffing your face? Because that's what you do out of habit. I mean, you can afford to do it, so you do it, whether you're hungry or not. You know, if you go to the Buddhist meditation center, they make you taste each bite of your food, so it takes 2 hours. It's horrible to eat your lunch, but you're conscious of the taste of your food. If you're just eating out of habit, then you don't taste the food, and you're not conscious of the reality of what's happening to you. You enter the dream world again.
Now, do you think maybe we live in this dream world because we do so many things every day that affect us in ways that somehow we're just not aware of? And, you know, I was thinking, now last Christmas, Debbie and I were given an electric blanket. And I can tell you that it is just such a marvelous advance over our old way of life, and it is just great. But it is quite different from not having an electric blanket. And I sometimes sort of wonder, well, what is it doing to me? I mean, I sort of feel I'm not sleeping quite in the same way.
No, you wouldn't be.
I mean, and my dreams are sort of different, and I feel a little bit different when I get up in the morning.
I wouldn't put an electric blanket on for anything. First, I'd be worried I might get electrocuted. No, I don't trust technology. But I mean, the main thing, Wally, is that I think that that kind of comfort just separates you from reality in a very direct way.
You mean?
I mean, if you don't have that electric blanket and your apartment is cold and you need to put on another blanket or go into the closet and pile up coats on top of the blanket you have, well, then you know it's cold. And that sets up a link of things. You have compassion for well, is the person next to you cold? Are there other people in the world who are cold? What a cold night. I like the cold. My God, I never realized. I don't want a blanket. It's fun being cold. I can snuggle up against you even more because it's cold. All sorts of things occur to you. Turn on that electric blanket and it's like taking a tranquilizer. It's like being lobotomized by watching television. I think you enter the dream world again. I mean, what does it do to us, Wally, living in an environment where something as massive as the seasons or winter or cold don't in any way affect us? I mean, we're animals after all. I mean, what does that mean? I think that means that instead of living under the sun and the moon and the sky and the stars, we're living in a fantasy world of our own making.
Yeah, but I mean, I would never give up my electric blanket, Andre. I mean, because New York is cold in the winter. I mean, our apartment is cold. It's a difficult environment. I mean, our lives are tough enough as it is. I'm not looking for ways to get rid of the few things that provide relief and comfort. I mean, on the contrary, I'm looking for more comfort because the world is very abrasive. I mean, I'm trying to protect myself because really there are these abrasive beatings to be avoided everywhere you look.
Yeah, but Wally, don't you see that comfort can be dangerous? I mean, you like to be comfortable and I like to be comfortable too, but comfort can lull you into a dangerous tranquility. I mean, my mother knew a woman, Lady Hatfield, who was one of the richest women in the world, and she died of starvation because all she would eat was chicken. I mean, she just liked chicken, Wally, and that was all she would eat. And actually, her body was starving, but she didn't know it because she was quite happy eating her chicken, and so she finally died. See, I honestly believe that we're all like Lady Hatfield now. We're having a lovely, comfortable time with our electric blankets and our chicken, and meanwhile we're starving because we're so cut off from contact with the reality that we're not getting any real sustenance. Because we don't see the world. We don't see ourselves. We don't see how our actions affect other people. Have you read Martin Buber's book on Hasidism?
No.
Oh, well, here's a view of life. He talks about the belief of the Hasidic Jews that there are spirits chained in everything. There are spirits chained in you. There are spirits chained in me. There are spirits chained in this table. And that prayer is the action of liberating these enchained embryo-like spirits, and that every action of ours in life, whether it's doing business or making love or having dinner together, whatever, that every action of ours should be a prayer, a sacrament in the world. Now, do you think we're living like that? Why do you think we're not living like that? I think it's because if we allowed ourselves to see what we do every day, we might just find it too nauseating. I mean, the way we treat other people. I mean, you know, every day, several times a day, I walk into my apartment building. The doorman calls me Mr. Gregory, and I call him Jimmy. Already, what's the difference between that and the southern plantation owner who's got slaves? See, I think that an act of murder is committed in that moment when I walk into that building. You know, because here's a dignified, intelligent man, a man of my own age, and when I call him Jimmy, then he becomes a child, and I'm an adult because I can buy my way into the building.
Right, that's right. I mean, my God. When I was a Latin teacher, I mean, people used to treat me, I mean, you know, if I would go to a party of professional or literary people, I mean, I was just treated, in the nicest sense of the word, like a dog. I mean, in other words, there was no question of my being able to participate on an equal basis in the conversation with people. I mean, you know, I'd occasionally have conversations with people, but then when they asked what I did, which would always happen after about 5 minutes, you know, their faces, I mean, even if they were enjoying the conversation or they were flirting with me or whatever it was, you know, their faces would just have that expression, just like the portcullis crashing down, you know, those medieval gates. They would just walk away. I mean, I literally lived like a dog. And I mean, when Debbie was working as a secretary, you know, if she would tell people what she did, they would just go insane. I mean, it would be just as if she'd said, oh, well, I've been serving a life sentence recently for child murdering. I mean, my God, you know, when you talk about our attitudes toward other people, I mean, I think of myself as just a very decent, good person, you know, just because I think I'm reasonably friendly to most of the people I happen to meet every day. I mean, I really think of myself quite smugly. I just think I'm a perfectly nice guy, you know, so long as I think of the world as consisting of, you know, just a small circle of the people that I know as friends or the few people that we know in this little world of our little hobbies, the theater or whatever it is, and I'm really quite self-satisfied. I'm just quite happy with myself. I just have no complaint about myself. I mean, you know, let's face it. I mean, there's a whole enormous world out there that I just don't ever think about. And I certainly don't take responsibility for how I've lived in that world. I mean, you know, if I were actually to sort of confront the fact that I'm sort of sharing this stage with the starving person in Africa somewhere, well, I wouldn't feel so great about myself. So naturally, I just blot all those people right out of my perception. So, of course, I'm ignoring a whole section of the real world. But frankly, you know, when I write a play, in a way, one of the things I guess I think I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring myself up against some little bits of reality. And I'm trying to share that with an audience. I mean, of course, we all know the theater is in terrible shape today. I mean, at least a few years ago, people who really cared about the theater used to say, the theater is dead. And now everybody's redefined the theater in such a trivial way that, I mean, God, I know people who were involved with the theater who go to see things now that, I mean, a few years ago, these same people would have just been embarrassed to have even seen some of these plays. I mean, they would have just shrunk, you know, just in horror at the superficiality of these things. But now they say, oh, that was pretty good. It's just incredible. And I really just find that attitude unbearable because I really do think the theater can do something very important. I mean, I do think the theater can help bring people in contact with reality. Now, you may not feel that at all. I mean, you may just find that totally absurd.
Yeah, but Wally, don't you see the dilemma? You're not taking into account the period we're living in. I mean, of course that's what the theater should do. I mean, I've always felt that. You know, when I was a young director and I directed the Bacchae at Yale, my impulse when Pentheus has been killed by his mother and the Furies and they pull the tree back and they tie him to the tree and fling him into the air and he flies through space and he's killed and they rip him to shreds and I guess cut off his head. My impulse was the thing to do was to get a head from the New Haven morgue and pass it around the audience. Now, I wanted Agawe to bring on a real head and that this head should be passed around the audience so that somehow people realized that this stuff was real, see, that it was real stuff. Now, the actress playing Agawe absolutely refused to do it. You know, Gordon Craig used to talk about why is there gold or silver in the churches or something, the great cathedrals, when actors could be wearing gold and silver. And I mean, people who saw Eleanora Duse in the last couple of years of her life, Wally, people said that it was like seeing light on stage or mist or the essence of something. I mean, then when you think about Bertolt Brecht, he somehow created a